I'm Candida Manion, and I run the Oklahoma Coalition Against Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault. How many of you have heard of the statewide agency? Good, that's pretty good. And by the way, thank you, Senator, for inviting me. I have been a resident of Norman for 22 years, so my heart is here. And I went to OU, and I've been the executive director for the coalition for 5.5 years. A little bit about our coalition. We basically represent, I like to say it this way, we're the voice of the victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, and human trafficking. And so, who are we? We were established in 1981, so we're 38 years old. It's a dual coalition. So let me just tell you, every state in the union has a coalition. Sometimes the coalitions are split. There might just be a coalition for sexual assault and a coalition for domestic violence. Oklahoma is a small state, we're 4 million, so we decided to have a dual coalition which would basically cover all violence against women. Well, that's where we started, but today we also have male victims too. So our dual coalition covers domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, and I am going to be working with my board to add human trafficking to it. We're already working with the human trafficking shelters and the programs, but that's not added into our mission statement. The other one is, of course, we're a nonprofit agency. We're located in Oklahoma City, and we're just a staff of five of us. We get a lot accomplished, and our budget is pretty small, but again, we get a lot accomplished between the 5 of us. Sorry. So our coalition currently, our membership is only is the services of like someone like WRC. They're shelters. But we also have crisis centers around Oklahoma, and crisis centers means that they don't have a bed, they don't have a shelter. So you have a victim call in a crisis center, say they're in Chickasha. Chickasha doesn't have a shelter. They call in the crisis center, and if it's a victim of domestic violence and they need to get to safety, they'll call up either Norman, the shelter in Norman, or the YWCA and get a bed for them. So that's what a crisis center is. So we have 25 member programs. We have a board of directors. Then we also have a program advisory council, and that is all the member programs, and they're the ones who determine legislation, policy, funding. And I'm like the middle person, so I go back to the board and tell the board what the programs need, because they're the ones who do all the work on the ground. Even I don't know anything. Every time I need an opinion, I go to the programs. And I also reach out to law enforcement and to also the DAs, because we want to ultimately, when we make policy decisions, we want to hear everyone's voices so that we get victims the justice they need and the safety, and get them to safety. The other one is, how are we funded? We're funded by federal grants, and a lot of our funding is from the Department of Justice. Our membership fees, which actually goes to pay our lobbyists, and donations. What do we do? Basically, we're an advocacy agency. We can lobby, we advocate not only at the state level, but at the national level too. So I travel a lot to Washington, D.C., meet with our congressional leaders, and also work closely with national organizations like the National Network to End Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault. In domestic violence, and then we have other agencies, other national organizations that work specifically on sexual assault. So legislation is a big deal for us. And as Senator was saying, and also Christy, we have a problem in our state. It's the judicial system. Currently, we treat domestic violence as a nonviolent crime. It's coded that way. And there are 7 sections, and we are working towards moving it to a violent crime. So that's our big one. Policies are, all the agencies, how they deal with victims, how they run their agencies, leadership, so we help them through all of that processes too. The next big one is, of course, federal funding. So how many of you have heard of WAWA? Reauthorization. So that's something we work on. We call our legislators, our congressional leaders, and Representative Cole is a huge supporter of us. So if you ever see him, thank him, because he is he has been instrumental with a lot of the funding that we are getting in our state, and especially for the tribes too. He's included the tribes in WAWA and also FIPSA. And currently we're also looking at VOCA funding too, which is what victims of crimes assistance. The other big one that we do through our office, so if you see all the training that we have around the state, a lot of it is coming out of our office. We do webinars, and you can follow us on Facebook, and it will tell you updates, give you updates on all the trainings that are coming out. We just don't provide training for advocates, we provide trainings for law enforcement, basically for anyone who works with a victim in any capacity, even if it is just 10% of their job. Because victims, you can't treat them the same way. You have to listen to them. Their stories are all unique, and you can't do victim blaming. So we have to work through all of that and train advocates, law enforcement, medical staff on how to work with victims of domestic violence and sexual assault. Of course, the last one is collaboration with a lot of our partners around the state, but our big one is the Native Alliance Against Violence. So Oklahoma is a huge tribal state. We have a huge tribal population. We also have a coalition, which is in Norman, and that is the Native Alliance, and that is the tribal programs around the state. So there are like over 32 programs around the state that provide services to tribal victims, and our programs work very closely together to give services, and we kind of, go back and forth on how we provide services to victims. It doesn't matter whether they're tribal or non-tribal. So I always say tribal versus non-tribal programs. So the coalition works closely with the non-tribal programs. So overview of Oklahoma. Like Christy stated, they're certified. Oklahoma is one of the few states in the United States that certifies all their shelters, which is great because you have a system in place, a standard in place. So currently we have 30 certified shelters and crisis centers. And think about it, we're 77 counties and only 30 shelters. So you have a shelter, example is a program in the Panhandle. It covers 6 counties. That's not a joke, especially when you talk about a sexual assault victim. And it sometimes takes them 3 hours to get to a place to get signed exam. So we have some issues with, we don't have enough shelters, we don't have enough staff, and we don't have enough money to go around. So we have to leverage our resources in the community to get the work done. We have 3 certified sex trafficking programs. One is in Oklahoma City and the 2 are in Tulsa. And we know we have a human trafficking problem in Oklahoma, so those stories are heartbreaking. If you ever get a chance, please do go for the events. They are one of the most heartbreaking stories that I've heard. Then we have the Bad Breath Intervention Program. Basically, there's a court-ordered program for offenders, and it's a 52-week program. A lot of them don't complete it. It's basically designed to assist backers to stop violence and help them understand why they are controlling, why they control other people, they need to control other people. So, like I've covered, what is considered nonviolent crime in Oklahoma, but let me give you an idea about how services look like in Oklahoma. Every year, we do a survey, a 24-hour survey with all the shelters. And the survey gives you kind of a glance on how it looks like. So in a day, we serve over 1,000 victims in the state. Just one day. So you can calculate how many days a year, multiply, it'll tell you the population. So when I did it, it was 8 to 9% of our population just getting services. And by the way, I have a few copies, you can access it, you can get it from me. The other one is, out of that, we had 130 victims who could not access any services. And the big one was housing. We have a problem. The shelters have to get the victims out to transitional housing. And they are given, what, 60 days to stay in, or 30 days? 30 days. And so, think about it. Those victims were turned back. We told them, sorry, we can't help you. The other part was last year, we had local programs take away 22 positions. They were advocates, the attorneys. So when we have federal cuts, this is what happens. And the numbers are not improving. They're getting worse every year. And when a victim doesn't get access to shelter or to safety, guess what happens? Goes back to the offender, the perpetrator. And we also know that the perpetrator escalates. When they're not held accountable, they escalate. Next thing you know, something horrible happens. And when you look at strangulation, we have seen an increase of strangulation in Oklahoma, and men who strangulate also kill cops. There's enough research to back that up in the whole of the US. We just had a cop get killed in Houston. And I bet if they looked at his history, he has strangulated before. They don't care. They can kill now. They've never been held accountable. They're being released. So they keep on escalating. So we have no way of measuring the escalation too. So this is just a little bit of the work that's happening in Oklahoma, and I'm hoping for 2020 we have better legislation passed, and we're going to work with the senator and put our perpetrators behind bars and hold them accountable. And most of all, getting our victims a new start to life, because they deserve it, and giving their families a new lease to life. Anyway, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and that's our office number. If you ever, have questions, you can call us up, and we'll get back with you all. So, thank you. Great.